The Covenant was a galaxy-spanning, multi-species empire joined by the unified religious belief that an ancient civilization known as the Forerunners had achieved divinity through the activation of Halo, a weapon network they referred to as the Sacred Rings. It was also a political and military affiliation, incorporating other species into their ranks and leveraging the exceptional technology left behind by the Forerunners to wipe out any who disbelieved. As always, I'm your host Abz. It's time to try our hand at a Halo lore video, since I really do love this franchise, and I'd like to think that it's really interesting. Even if you know nothing about Halo or its lore, I want this video to be easily understandable. So, let's have a look into the Covenant as a whole, and their member species. Without further ado, let's get into this.
In the center of this zone is a sacred icon critical to the great journey. I must find it.
We shall cut into the heart of this infestation, retrieve the icon, and burn any flood that stand in our way.
The two species, the Sangheili and the Sangheili, were indulged in decades of war, but this would eventually come to an end with the Writ of Union, an eternal pledge between their species that would balance both power and wisdom. The Sangheili would take control of religious affairs and authority as the prophets of the Forerunners. Meanwhile, the Sangheili would oversee the military force. The Forerunner starship, known as the Dreadnought, was discovered by the Sangheili and was decommissioned. It later became an integral part of the Covenant religion, as well as providing power to the Covenant's holy city, known as High Charity. What had begun as a weak relationship between two species built on adoration for the Forerunners was eventually forged into a Covenant empire that could bring entire civilizations to their knees. The Sangheili and the Sangheili were the two ruling species, but the Covenant's supreme authority consisted of the hierarchs, the three high prophets, whose words were considered divine law. They were believed to be the voice of the Forerunners themselves. Hundreds of Sangheili and Sangheili councillors were part of the High Council, who governed the flow of the empire itself on a day-to-day basis. Below this were different councils and ministries who would carry out the prophet's holy writ through different tasks and duties. The abilities of the various Covenant races were often exploited by the military to help push forward the ever-growing Covenant war machine. Order was enforced, and the Covenant's wrath was projected onto others through their space operations. The Covenant were able to engage any opposition in every conceivable context, augmented by formidable weaponry that nearly always outclassed their opposition. Whether it was naval warfare, spec ops warfare, or anything in between, it didn't matter. The Covenant military had no equal in the known galaxy.
Brute ships, staggered line, shipmaster, they outnumber us 3-1.
Then it is an even fight.
All cruisers fire at will.
When living on their own planets, the different Covenant species saw measured success with technology, but under the Empire, the recovery and reverse engineering of Forerunner machines was the key to producing the Covenant's incredible technology. From their ships, weapons, vehicles, structures and more. Most of the species in the Covenant maintain elements of their own cultures, but the Sangheili were the authors of all literature, art, and modes of life within the Empire. The language, however, was passed on by the Sangheili due to the sheer number of their kind during the Covenant's early years, and given the simplicity of their native tongue. High Charity was the Covenant's home world, which was safeguarded by an endless array of warships. This was the primary base of operations, and where the higher powers and military resided, but also being the hub for religious, scientific, and cultural purposes as well. The Sangheili's home world was called Sanghelios, and this, alongside its colonies, were part of the Covenant's fortress worlds. The Sangheili had severed ties with their home world, but other species within the Covenant, unfortunately, had to forfeit the rights to their own worlds for the full leveraging of the planet's resources. The Covenant would also go on to discover worlds once held by the Forerunners themselves, therefore would extract any viable technology and resources, and at times use them as strongholds as well. The Covenant conquered and conscripted different alien species, but some species gradually became a part of the Empire, so I'll be giving a lore overview of each of these species with their actual and human given names.
Let him be. The great journey waits for no one, brother. Not even you.
The Covenant is governed by the highest caste, the Sangheili, also known as prophets by humans, who also serve as its leaders. Prophets, who are physically weak, wield power through complete control over the Covenant and through technology that has been recovered from Forerunners, leaving the Sangheili and other races to carry out the conquest. They have significant ego and religious influence over the Covenant thanks to their greater understanding of the Forerunners. In the language of the other races of the Covenant, the High Prophets are referred to as hierarchs, noble hierarchs, holy ones, as well as exalted.
This armor suits you, but it cannot hide that mark.
Nothing ever will.
You are the arbiter, the will of the prophets. But these are my elites. Their lives matter to me, yours does not.
That makes two of us.
Prior to the Great Schism in 2552, the Sangheili, or elites as humans refer to them, were the Covenant's military commanders. Strong, proud and intelligent warriors. While the Sangheili frequently had the final say, military operations and naval engagements were planned by the Sangheili. They uphold the Covenant's military organization and guarantee that both their own and the Prophet's commands are carried out. The other client races are viewed as inferior by the Sangheili in every way. Although the crews are almost always made up of a variety of races, the Sangheili are the only race known to be allowed to design and manage starships within the Covenant, and they are divided into ranks according to their level of expertise and experience. Sangheili must earn promotions in the field of battle in order to advance in rank. They were a significant part of the Covenant and the only caste that could continue to control the military hierarchy and have a say in the High Council prior to the Great Schism. Sangheili names that end in two E's, such as Zamami or Vadami, indicate that the Sangheili are or were members of the Covenant military, although most of the Sangheili removed the two E's from their names after the Great Schism to indicate that they had left the Covenant. So one example being the arbiter himself. When he was part of the Covenant, he was known as Thel Vadami, but after resigning, he changed his surname to Vadam.
Noble prophets of truth and mercy, I have brought the incompetent.
You may leave, Tartarus,
But I thought...
and take your brutes with you.
One of the more recent species to join the Covenant is the Jiralhanae, also known as brutes by the humans. These are giant, ape-like, physically imposing specimens from their home world known as Doizak. They are the only race to have achieved status that is nearly equal to that of the Sangheili, one of the founding clients of the Covenant Pact. They don't use energy shields, but they easily make up for this with their incredible natural resistance to damage, which comes from their tough hides. They also use a variety of pre-Covenant era weapons and vehicles. This technology that they use is outdated compared to other Covenant weapons. However, it is still incredibly lethal because most Jiralhanae developed weapons have a signature lethality and also have blades attached to them. Jiralhanae can occasionally go berserk and attack anything or anyone in their path, in addition to their usual style of combat. This shows their aggressive nature and their low tolerance for being cornered. Thanks to their animalistic brutality and strength, the Jiralhanae can rely on close combat to defeat their enemies, even more so than the Sangheili. Jiralhanae have their own ranks, rising to war chieftains, who typically use gravity hammers, fuel rod guns, or plasma cannons. And when possible, they always work in groups of 3 to 8. An artificial, non-combatant species developed by the Forerunners are the Huragok, or also known as the Engineers. They are biological supercomputers who will only communicate with the prophets or those who are fluent in their language. Although engineers are very high in the caste system, the naval intelligence viewed them as slaves or prisoners. The physical work of excavation, unlocking, and data collection on Forerunner artifacts is done by the Huragok, which was a fact that the Sangheili tried to conceal. They are typically a non-militant race. However, they have occasionally been used as suicide bombers in the Human Covenant War, but they are being shown to be neutral and occasionally even showing allegiance to the humans. They only have a personal energy shield when they are being forced to use it, and if its allies are nearby, these Huragok can enhance any existing shielding or project an energy shield around its allies. Huragok appear to not really distinguish between friends and enemies, and have little interest in taking sides in conflicts. Instead, they would rather spend their time examining or maintaining technology. However, they do make a high-pitched keening noise whenever a Forerunner artifact is in danger. The humans refer to the Mgalekgolo, or hunters, as enormous monsters, but in reality, they are a collection of worm-like creatures called the Mgalekgolo that combine to form a massive armor-plated form. So they are called Mgalekgolo when they take this form. They are the strongest of the Covenant fighting units, and always fight and travel in pairs, known as the Bond Brothers, which technically means that not all of the colonies of worms were able to fit within one set of armor. Now the Covenant usually drop bonded Mgalekgolo into combat together. This is because if one of the bonded colonies is killed, the other will go into a frenzied berserk. They are armed with strong assault cannons, and a massive shield that can withstand small arms fire, and be used as a melee weapon due to its sharp sides, and the Mgalekgolo's great strength. They are typically deployed onto the battlefield only when a heavy force is required, and therefore are used more like heavy machinery than actual soldiers. We don't know anything about their political or religious motivations. I mean, well, they are a formation of worms after all. The Yanme'es, also known as drones or buggers by the humans, who served almost exclusively as engineers before they were replaced by the Huragok. Because of this, the Yanme'e developed an animosity towards the brand new, peaceful engineers that occasionally turned violent. The UNSC lacked combat experience against airborne infantry, so eventually the Yanme'e were used as aerial combatants against them later on. The Needler and the plasma pistol were their go-to weapons in battle, and as we know, the Needler was devastating, as it could unleash a super combine explosion if enough needles were fired at the same target. The Yanme'e were an excellent strategic weapon against ground-based adversaries due to their ability to fight on the wing and their typical deployment in large groups. Although the Yanme'e are also called the buggers, they aren't actually insects, but they do resemble colonial insects and earthly beetles in many ways. The Yanme'e have 2 pairs of veined wings and a hard exoskeleton, which is made of a glossy chitinous substance. The Kig-Yar, also known as jackals or skirmishers by the humans. They are the second lowest caste in the Covenant, and serve as the military's scouts and marksmen thanks to their superior senses. Kig-Yar have warm-blooded metabolisms, feathers, quills, and beaks just like birds and various dinosaur species. They also have scales, which are more reptilian characteristics. The Kig-Yar have very poor physical durability, so they use a portable energy shield generator in battle. They are typically deployed to defend strategic areas, and are primarily used as sharpshooters due to their excellent vision and dexterity. Although their physical strength is practically useless against augmented soldiers developed by the Spartan program, they are still large and strong enough to physically overwhelm a fully trained human soldier. When a Kig-Yar is being fired upon, it will cover its head with its hands and trot off to another firing position. Because the Unggoy, which we'll get to in a moment, are constantly attempting to establish their superiority over them in the Covenant's caste system. Therefore, the Kig-Yar have a very strong dislike for them. They once tainted a recreational drug that the Unggoy used, which almost rendered the Unggoy race infertile, and this had unfortunately caused the Unggoy rebellion. So then we have the Unggoy, the most prevalent and lowest caste of the Covenant, who are natives of the planet Balaho and are referred to as Grunts by the humans. When motivated, the Unggoy could be vicious, determined, and competent fighters. They lack the skill and physicality, but they can make up for it with their sheer numbers and tenacity. On the battlefield, when the Unggoy witness their commanders fall, they often go into a panic and scatter in random directions. The Sangheili found the Unggoy just as they were entering their own Iron Age. They were classified as a Tier 6 civilization according to the Forerunner charts, and were at a very early stage of cultural development. They had no choice but to submit to the Covenant or risk extinction. After being incorporated into the Covenant, their entire history was lost, and they essentially became a slave race. The Unggoy rebellion needed an arbiter to put an end to it because, despite their obvious cowardice and incompetence, they are quite dangerous in large groups. For them to survive on other planets, a sizable tank filled with the gas that they breathe must be worn on their back. Even in the best of circumstances, relationships between the Unggoy and the Kig-Yar are tense to say the least. So that, my friends, is an introductory and lore overview video of the Covenant Empire in Halo lore. Let me know what you think of this video in the comments below. Drop a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already if you enjoy the content. And a very special thank you to the channel members for supporting the channel. I'm your host Abz, and as always, I will catch you guys next time.